Here's another view of the Jonah story, this time by Janet White. She's called it Jonah, Son of Somebody, or Fish Napped. After all these years, that night sticks in my memory like a barnacle on a ship's bottom. It's haunted my dreams ever since. In all my years of sailing, I never experienced such a storm. It all started when we'd finished loading the ship for another journey across the Med. A man came up and asked if we still had any tickets for sale. Big, bulbous nose, tufty hair, and a long blue robe, and a troubled look. Of course, we said. Where do you want to go? As far away as possible, he said. Now that got us wondering. How about Tarshish, we said. It's only 2,500 miles. Will that be far enough for you? It'll do, he said, and he paid the full amount. He was a quiet man, that Jonah, son of somebody, and you could tell he'd never been to sea. Talk about seasick. For the first few days he was either throwing up overboard or lying down somewhere looking green. And then came the day of the storm. It was a storm to beat all storms. Nothing like the usual ones. This one was a whopper. After hours and hours of being tossed about like a mouse on a camel's back, the ship was beginning to sink, and we were terrified. So we started praying. We all had different gods. Mine was pretty respectable, god of the moon. One of my mates worshipped a god of lobsters. Can you imagine? So here we were, each praying and praying to our own gods, when someone said, "Where's that Jonah, son of somebody?" Of course, he was asleep, wasn't he? Clutching his stomach in mid-snore, sick as 100 parrots. "Get up and pray to your God," we shouted. It turned out that it was Jonah's fault the storm came. We knew he was running away from somebody. We'd wondered, maybe it was his wife, or his mother. Or maybe he'd committed a crime and someone was after him for revenge. Actually, we preferred not to know, but it was worse. He was running away from his God. And it wasn't just a little local God. How do you run away from the God of everything? "Throw me into the sea," he said, "and then the storm will stop." We tried everything but that. In all my days, I'd never killed a man. We'd never throw anyone overboard. And we knew there could be sharks about. But the storm wouldn't stop until he persuaded us. The look on that man's face as he sunk under the water. His body relaxed, and I'm sure I saw a glimmer of peace. And right then, the storm stopped, just as if it had never happened. It was then we realized that our gods didn't qualify. This God was the one who could still the worst storm we'd ever had. So guess who we prayed to after that? I never forgot that Jonah, son of somebody. The other day, years later, we had a newcomer on our ship. Said he was from a place called Nineveh. Great place, he said. Used to be terrible until a man came and told them all the city was going to be destroyed in 40 days. Nothing happened in the end. Well, it did. People were so scared they stopped doing all the nasty things they'd been up to. The crime rate sunk to 0. The man who preached against them had stayed and watched for the full 40 days and was upset that the city wasn't destroyed. He was cross with his God, but they were happy. The city was much nicer to live in after that. He described the bloke. Big, bulbous nose, tufty hair, and a long blue robe. And it's funny, the man said, there was a bit of a whiff of seaweed about him. And fish. Remembering that storm so many years ago, I started to tremble. He wasn't called Jonah, son of... That's the man, he said.